So even though I've already taught you how to build a gable roof, there are too many applications where a simple gable roof like this just simply won't be enough knowledge for you to create a more complex roof with lots of gables and lots of interconnecting pieces. So in this video, I'm going to give you 3 tools that you can use to do a roof on something that's different than what we started out with. And the way that we're going to do this is I want you to go into your first floor and start creating a few additional walls. Take the back wall and pull it in on both sides. Take the front wall and we're going to slice it in the middle, and then we're going to pull it over on both sides. And what we're trying to do here is create little bump outs in the building. So for example, if I take the wall on the left and pull it back, same with the wall on the right, pull it back, I can then select any one of these walls, type in CS for create similar, and we're going to create the bump outs like this. The exact size of these bump outs is not important. In fact, from the right side to the left side, I don't even care if they match or line up. You don't want something like this though. I need to use TR for trim and then pick both walls. Be careful about where you click. It's got to be here and here, but not up here. Okay, and then we'll go down here to the bottom and we'll do something similar, but this is going to be a single bump out. Make sure to start over here on the right side and go down. If you start on the left and then go down, it will make your walls inside out like this. And then you have to find that little grip, that little arrow, and click on it, and then it flips them back around. But if your siding is on the outside in all cases, then we are good to go. Now, the next thing we're going to do is go into our roof, and we're going to take away these 2 little slope arrows and just accept that there, so that it looks like this. Okay, last thing is I don't really want to be working with a 12-12. I'm going to switch that back to 9 because that's the default. So as I go create new roof pieces over these, they'll also be at 9. That's just an easier way to begin. Okay, now I'll go into my roof plan, and I think I'd actually like to pull this forward just a little bit. This isn't something you need to do, but just to make it easier to see. I'm going to select my roof and edit the footprint. And what we're trying to do here is get rid of this center portion. So if you only had one line across here and you were trying something like this, you'd want to use SL, slice it in the middle, and then you'd have 2 segments, and that would be good enough. I already have 2 segments, so I'm going to use pick walls, extend a wall core. We want to define slope. I want a 1 foot overhang, and I want slope here. I want slope here, but I don't want slope on the front. That's where my gable will be. Looks like I got to use trim to fix that problem. And you'll see in 3D, I can accept this in 3D, that the roof now has a gable similar to what it had before, except that the gable sits on this bump out or on these walls that protrude out from the building. Okay, and that's actually easier than what we did previously. The reason that I showed the previous version was because sometimes you don't have these little walls that step out. But if you do have them, use them. And then finish it out just by attaching like that. Okay, there are 2 more methods that I'm going to show for doing that. And it's a little bit harder when you do it on the side, actually. That method that I just showed for the front wouldn't have worked here because this line doesn't have slope. So if I add a little segment here and then I add slope, that's going to be a problem. I can only pick walls once. So if I go into roof plan and I want to pick the wall that extends out from the house, it's not going to let me do that because it recognizes I've already picked the only wall that I have an option to pick over here on the left-hand side. And there's already a line there for it. So it's not going to allow me a new line where I can add in the slope from the left, in this case the left-hand side, which is what I would need to eventually have a gable just over this portion. Okay, so the solution is that instead of creating it inside this roof element, we're going to create a new roof element. And when I go into plan view and I choose that same tool, let's go to extend a wall core, define slope. It will now allow me to choose that wall a second time. Once again, because this is a brand new roof element. It's not part of that existing roof element. So I'll do that. I'm going to pick the roof, or I'm going to pick the wall. I'm going to pick the wall over here, and then I'm going to take away the slope and pick the wall here. I'll draw a line on the back and trim it up. I had to draw that one because there's no wall to select. And when we accept, there's no surprise. We should have something like this, way up high, and it's got a ridge. It's kind of like what you see on the front. Well, let's drop it down first. It's kind of like what you see on the front, only you can see it doesn't have a great big gap that should be filled in. Or it does have a great big gap that should be filled in. How would I do that? Well, the first method that I'll show is to simply take the line for the back of the house and just pull it an arbitrary amount until you think you've gone far enough, and then you can see that we've got, at least from over here, a roof that kind of looks correct. I wish I could see the line that separates the two roof elements. Over here, it's not quite as good simply because I've got part of it hanging down over here on this side underneath the original roof. Okay, well, we can fix both of these problems. And the first thing that we want to do is select this roof and use the Join Geometry tool. Okay, don't confuse this with Join Unjoin Roof. These are two really useful tools. This one I'm going to show you in an application over here on the house, but Join Geometry is what we want to use right here, right now, because the problem with our two roofs is we don't see how they're separated. There's no line separating them, even though that is technically a valley. And that's where we want the water to go, but we really need to be able to see the valley. So once again, I select this and I use Join Geometry, then pick the two items you want to join, and there. Now you can see we've got the valleys. We've just still got a little problem going on over here. And I'm going to go back into my roof plan. Okay, what I need to be able to do here is tell this roof that it should not exist beyond this valley. You know, I'm essentially telling it that we need part of it and we don't need part of it. And how do we get rid of just the part that we don't want? Under architecture, there's a tool called vertical opening. And when I click on this, I can pick any roof and start cutting away at that roof by drawing a shape from overhead. And that's why it's called a vertical opening. My vertical opening can only be created when I'm looking down on it. I'm going to use the pick lines. And once I get past the valley, I can really just draw whatever large shape I want. And anything that's inside of these pink lines will disappear if it's part of this roof. And you can see that I went larger than I needed to. You can overshoot this and it's not a problem. Now, just so that you get the sense that this really is an opening tool and not just a cutaway tool, I'm going to show you that by putting in a little circle over here, which will create a true vertical opening. Okay, let's go ahead and accept. And when we look at it in 3D, you can see the part of the roof that I didn't want is now gone. But the fact that it's a vertical opening means that it really just took everything from overhead, took that shape, and it's as though it extruded it straight down, and anything that got in the way disappeared. So the circle right here, that's now a void, and everything past the valley is now a void. And I don't really need this one. I just wanted to show that it's an opening tool. So the way that you correct this or change it is that you have to be able to hover and just select the opening. Okay, that's hard to do over here because I can't see what I'm trying to select. I can only see the entire roof. When I go over here, I can select just the opening by hovering right over the top line, this circle right here. If I can select that, then I can say Edit Sketch. I don't really want this circle there at all, so I'm just going to delete it out. The rest of it is good. I want that to be my opening, or cutaway in this case. And if you still need to make a change to it, then you would somehow have to be able to select that opening, which is hard to do because it exists in between these two roof elements. My solution for this is to simply make a larger selection that gets lots of pieces, and you can see exactly how many you just selected. I selected 7 elements down here. I'll go up here to my filter tool, and it will show me that I selected 2 roofs, 4 walls, and 1 roof opening cut. Well, this is the one that I want. So I'll tell it check none, which means none of those are selected. Then I'll manually select the roof opening cut and click OK. And even though you can't see it, it says right here that I have a roof opening cut selected. So I will edit my sketch for it. And now we're back into this shape. And you can make any adjustments just by changing those pink lines. And then when you're done, click the green check mark again or delete it out entirely. And it's almost cleaned up, right? It looks pretty good. The only problem now is that I've got this roof that seems to be running right down inside of the building. Sometimes it's detrimental. Sometimes it wouldn't make any difference at all. In my case, I could just run the wall up the gable and nobody's going to know that I've got roof inside behind this wall. There it is. I can see that roof now. And it just may not make any difference. If it does make a difference, then the same thing that we did by cutting out part of this roof, we can do to cut out part of this roof. Let me demonstrate. If I go to my roof plan and I use the very same tool, Architecture, Vertical Opening, we'll select this roof. I can now pick lines along the valley. And once again, you can draw this bigger than it needs to be. I'll accept that. And in 3D, if I hide this, you can see that the roof is now opened up inside there. This roof no longer extends down, which could interrupt the ceiling space on the inside. Okay, so that's a nice clean way to do what is somewhat of a challenging roof element. There's two gables side by side now. They're adjacent to each other. We couldn't have done them as one single roof element, and so this was the solution. Okay, there's just one more thing that I'm going to show now. On the opposite side, it's very similar. In some ways, it might be considered a faster way to do a roof like what we did over here. But I'm going to pull this wall out just a little bit for the effect. Okay, I'm going to go into my roof command, and we will define the slope, extend into wall core. I'm going to pick both sides once again. I'm going to then deselect the slope and then finish it off just like we did last time by drawing a line across on the backside. And I don't have any walls to pick here, so once again, that's why I have to draw a line. Okay, now we want to trim it all up. And when I trim, you can see I got my slope on the left and right. And what we can expect to see is a big open gable, just like this one here on the front. And gosh, on the back, we've got that big gap again. Not really what we wanted. Now first, let me drop this into place. I would like this to be down on the top of the wall, just like that. Okay, and then second, I want to fill in this gap, and there is an easy way to do that. I'm going to simply select the roof, and that brings up the Modify tab, and then we want to use the Join Unjoin Roof. Okay, now remember, this is different than joining geometry. Join Unjoin Roof can only work for roofs, and what it will do is extend this roof until it hits the other one. So there always has to be two roof pieces in order for this to work. And I'm going to click on the edge of the roof here. Pay close attention to where I'm clicking. It seems to be the biggest trouble or problem with this tool, is that I'm clicking in a very specific spot, and you got to get it right, and it's the very top leading edge. And I call the leading edge the one that needs to move into the gap. There's a gap here between these two roofs, so therefore this is the one that needs to push over. Okay, after I select that line, I pick on the roof that I want to extend it to, and wow, isn't that fast and easy? It's a really handy tool, and sometimes it makes cleaning up roofs faster than anything else you could possibly do. Now, as much as I like this tool, it does actually have a couple of drawbacks. And one of them is that if this line had been too far over to where these roofs are already touching, sometimes it won't work. And I can demonstrate that by going back to it. Make sure that you get the right edge when you do this, which is always going to be the edge closest to wherever you want these two roofs to collide or intersect. But sometimes it looks like it's going to work. Sometimes it'll just say, we can't join these roofs. And it has to do with the fact that they're already intersecting too heavily. I'll try to intersect it again and see if it'll give me that error. Yeah, well, I'm getting lucky right now. That can be a drawback. And then the second drawback is that it can be really hard to cut out of this roof. And I'll demonstrate that one now. The reason for this is if we use the same tool we did last time, which was the architecture vertical opening, and we're trying to cut into this roof, we want to cut out this area. Okay, again, I'm going to overshoot so that I get everything that I need. Really, that was kind of a really large overshoot because all I'm trying to do is get this edge, right? I want to cut out this little triangle and just make sure that this edge that I can't see right now, it's a continuation of this edge. I just want to make sure that this pink line surrounds all of the line that extends through here. Okay, let's accept it and see what it does. Okay, that did work. And once again, I'm kind of surprised because oftentimes it won't work. The reason for that being, if you cut too much away from this roof and this one has been joined to that roof, it'll say, we just don't have enough there to attach these two roofs anymore. And even though I'm getting really lucky right now and it happens to be working, I know just the thing to show you why sometimes this won't work in your own projects. If I were to go back into my roof plan and better yet, let me just hide this smaller portion, HH. I'm going to select that roof opening cut. I'm going to edit the sketch, then I'm going to go back into my roof plan. Let's say that the opening was larger than it currently is. And what you're looking at with this black line right here, that's the valley where the smaller roof meets the bigger roof. And if I make the opening even larger, then there won't be any roof here for the smaller roof to attach to. Okay, let's go in 3D so I can show you. Okay, already I get the error. These roofs cannot be joined. So I'm just going to say unjoin. I'll unhide this original one. But you can see that if this one wants to extend, what's it going to hit? On this side of the roof, there's nothing for it to hit. And that's because my opening is just too big. And sometimes when you're doing this and aligning them, I'm going to hit undo now. When you're trying to align that pink opening to the valley, it still won't have enough there. It has to do with, the way that the roof slopes and just how much surface area it can find. But that is a common problem for me, and that's why I wanted to show it, that sometimes you're not able to cut out the roofs when you have them joined up the way that they are right now. Okay, anyways, the last thing I would just need to do is finish this up, and we've got 3 roofs now, 3 different gable styles. One of them, it's the original in the front here. We did it as part of the original roof. Okay, then we came over here, and we actually drew that, and we shaped it to follow the valley. Its lines cut off right where these 2 roofs intersect. And then this one we did simply as a smaller roof with a surface area that we could join to. We chose to join this edge to the larger roof. We get similar results in all 3.